Discover the miraculous legacy of the 70 nations, unveiling their divine descendants today. In the 3rd year of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, the world lay veiled in the interim of the cataclysm. The flood had purged the earth, yet remnants of humanity remained, embodied in the lives of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. These 3 sons of Noah, now stewards of the divine promise, stood at the forefront of a newly birthed world. The weight of their lineage pressed upon Shem's heart. After their father's covenant with Yahweh, it fell to them to repopulate the earth, to embody faithfulness amidst a fog of human ambition. As evening descended, with the sun casting golden hues over rugged hills near the remnants of the ark, Shem gathered his brothers and their families. "We are to establish our families and find our place in the world," he addressed them, voice laden with vulnerability. But amidst this expanse, what truly defines us? It was a question that plunged through his spirit as he pondered the destiny of their descendants and the looming creation of 70 nations around them. Setting out into the lush lands of ancient Mesopotamia, each brother claimed territory for his lineage. They marveled at the fertility around them, yet as they ventured forth, seeds of pride began to plant amongst the people. The heart of Babel stirred, where men convened with greed to erect a grand city, driven by lofty aspirations that echoed the folly their forefathers once embraced. "Let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered across the face of the whole earth," their voices roared, tainted with rebellion against God's command. Shem's heart trembled as he stood amidst the burgeoning majesty of Babel. He felt the pull of pride thicker than the air around him. His urgency grew. They must not yield to temptation. "We must not become like them," he implored, turning to his brothers. "God has chosen us, and through us a great promise awaits, the covenant given to our forefather Noah." Yet Ham, eyes glinting with ambition, stood swayed by the allure of the city's advancements, the dream of greatness whispering sweetly in his ear. Their unity strained as ambition rattled within the confines of their shared bloodline. As the architects of Babel toiled, Shem was gripped by a spirit of fear. Alone on the outskirts of the chaos, he sank to his knees, a plea escaping his lips. Suddenly, a voice echoed from the heavens, penetrating his soul. "Remember your covenant, Shem. You are to be a beacon of faith amidst the chaos." In that moment, the purpose of their lineage unfurled before him. Not mere city builders, but legacy bearers shaped by God's steadfast hand. Drawing upon the divine encouragement, Shem rallied his family. "Let us fulfill our purpose in worshiping the one who holds the earth's mountains in his hands." The air thickened ominously around them, dark clouds gathering as God prepared to intervene. Then it happened, a stunning divine intervention, scattering the tongues of man, so that Babel's architects fell into confusion, ceasing their grand enterprise. Between glances of fear and awe, Shem realized the profound truth. Humanity might strive to rise, but God's covenant stands unfaltering. With the passing of fear and awe, Shem realized the profound truth. Humanity might strive to rise, but God's covenant stands unfaltering. With the passing of nations, destinies diverged. Yet one certainty remained, the promise of hope and redemption woven through the threads of history. As the heart of Babel crumbled and Shem witnessed the birth of nations, a seed of understanding rooted within him. How far-reaching the implications of their faithfulness in uncertain times would unfold. The promise held fast, and the sacred tapestry God wove among the descendants of the earth invited him to ponder the question: how would the paths of these nations evolve, and what role would his faith play in this divine plan? Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select all notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey?
I'm always amazed how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. Shem stood, gazing upon the expanse of the chaos, heart renewed with the hope of a promise yet unfulfilled. Questions lingered in the air. Nations may rise and fall, but it would be the faithfulness of their lineage echoing in the annals of time that ultimately mattered. As the work of man swirled in rebellion, Shem resolved to hold fast to the covenant, understanding that indeed the journey of their lineage had only just begun. And it came to pass that as the remnants of Babel scattered like leaves in the wind, Shem, burdened with increasing revelation, journeyed southward with his family toward the land of Canaan. The lush trees whispered around them, as if the very earth rejoiced in their passage. "Look, my sons," he spoke tenderly, "the beauty of this land signifies the promise of our forefathers, a promise we are called to uphold. May our steps reflect faith rather than ambition." As they settled beneath an ancient oak, the warmth of dusk embraced them, and a sacred stillness fell. Yet in that moment, Ham's voice surged with conviction. "Father, why must we tread with caution? The power of unity calls forth greatness. Let us build a city like Babel, where we shall not only be known, but revered." The words electrified the air, challenging the foundation of their renewed mission. Shem, though weary, knew the depths of Ham's ambition. "Son," he responded firmly, "we have seen the outcome of such pride. God's designs are not to be thwarted by human desires. Are we to forget the chaos that ensued when men sought to outshine their Creator? We are called to be a blessing to the nations, not instruments of their demise." His eyes bore the weight of prophetic understanding, and yet the allure of Ham's dreams lingered within the shadows of his heart. Now it was Japheth who raised a hand, his brow furrowed. "Let us instead explore this land and its inhabitants. There must be a way to forge bonds with them, to show them the mercy of the one who saved us." His voice bore the peak of wisdom, and a sense of unity flickered in the gathering twilight. Shem smiled at his brother, feeling a surge of hope within him. "Indeed, Japheth, and in that we find our mission." Days turned to weeks, and they traveled from village to village, sharing stories of the Creator who brought forth life from the waters, who orchestrated the great flood, and who now offered a covenant of peace. Softened hearts began to listen, eyes filled with wonder as they beheld the faith emanating from Shem and his family. However, soon unrest grew in the lands around them. As the nations took shape, out of the rubble of Babel arose a fierce rebellion. Under the banner of a new ruler, Nimrod, men charged forth, driven by the desire to forge an empire that rivaled the heavens. "Join us," they proclaimed in thunderous voices. "We will gather all nations unto ourselves and claim dominion over the earth." The ground trembled beneath their fervor, and fear threatened to clutch Shem's heart once more. Nevertheless, in his spirit, Shem felt the urging of the Almighty. "Fear not," he declared with rising strength before the gathered tribes, "for we serve the one who established the heavens, the one who confounds the wise. The strength of man is but a shadow before his power." The words resounded, awakening a stirring amongst the people, igniting embers of faith where darkness sought to reign. But then word came that Nimrod, in his fury, sought to silence Shem and his family. With his forces gathering, the fate of the covenant seemed perilously suspended. As Shem knelt in prayer, pleading with the Almighty for direction, the clouds darkened, and a still voice echoed within. "Prepare, for I shall set forth a sign. A deliverer will rise from among you, bearing the weight of the nations upon their shoulders." The days grew heavy with anticipation, and Shem's heart ignited with the ancient promise. Could it be that even amidst rebellion, God's hand would reveal a path for redemption? And thus, Shem and his family stood at the precipice of God's divine orchestration, wondering what part they would play in this unfolding tapestry of promise. For as the nations united in pride, the call of the covenant remained, a beacon of hope illuminating the path ahead and heralding a destiny waiting to unveil its holy secrets in the dim corridors of human history. What deliverance awaited among them, and how would it echo throughout generations yet unforeseen? And it came to pass that as they lingered in
prayer, seeking divine wisdom, the heavens opened, and a great light enveloped Shem and his family. The air shimmered with the presence of the Almighty, and they stood in awe, feeling the weight of holy revelation descend upon them. In that moment, Shem beheld a vision. He saw a great multitude, as countless as the stars of heaven, emerging from different corners of the earth. Voices cried out in unison, singing praise to the one who was, who is, and who is to come. The vision declared a promise that this multitude would serve as vessels of God's covenant, fulfilling the command to be fruitful and multiply, to fill the earth and subdue it. Shall we be counted among them? Shem pondered aloud, his heart racing with expectancy. The gentle breeze whispered assurance as a flame of determination grew within him. We must teach them of the Almighty, the God of our fathers, Noah, who walked with him, and of Enoch, who was taken because he pleased God. But Ham, breathing deeply as he contemplated the vision, could not abandon the siren call of grandeur. Father, if we could harness such power, bind it in a single place, we could influence the very course of destiny. Surely we could lead them to greatness. His fervor echoed like thunderclaps, stirring discord among their resolves. Shem's face was resolute as he replied, "What confusion this would sow! Greatness built on pride leads to downfall. We are to glorify God through unity in obedience, not through dominion and pride. It is through humility that we will witness His hand at work." At that moment, a distant sound broke through the heavy air, a gathering throng. Curious souls drawn by the reverberations of Shem's previous declarations began to encircle their encampment. Their faces were painted with a mixture of hope and uncertainty, driven by the tales scattered across the land about Shem's family, the legacy rooted deep in righteousness. Japheth met his father's gaze, and with a nod of understanding, they stepped forth to greet the assembly. "People of the earth," Shem raised his voice, steady and unyielding, "we come not to build a tower that reaches the heavens, but to lift you to the one who has called forth all nations. The God of our fathers has entrusted us with the message of His hope. We invite you to know Him, to dwell in His peace, for the time of reckoning draws near." Excitement rippled through the crowd like wildfire, and hands reached out, voices softened as humility began to replace ambition. A tall man, his features sharp and wary, stepped forth. "Will your God protect us from the looming threat of Nimrod? Is there deliverance for those who stand against his might?" Shem steadied his heart, remembering the promise stewing within him. "Indeed, the God we serve is a fortress for those who seek Him. Rise up and take refuge in His name, for deliverance shall be as sure as the dawn, and He will raise a standard against your oppressors." As the assembled murmured and began to embrace the message of hope, a weighty presence began to unfold. The horizon was marked by shadows gathering ominously, the forces of Nimrod advancing, fueled by fury and disdain for the words that emboldened Shem and his kin. In that moment, the dark horizon whispered of looming conflict. "Prepare yourselves, for the time of choosing is at hand." Shem urged the people. "Will you stand with me, united not in pride, but in the covenant of God's love?" Unknown to Shem, as the multitude murmured in response, heavens had already begun to weave an intricate plan, a deliverance born of faith, ready to reshape the course of the nations. For even as the tide of defiance surged with the forces of Nimrod, so too would the waves of God's mercy crash upon the shores of history, heralding the dawn of a new era.
What deliverance awaited them in their darkest hour? And how would the heavens unveil the fullness of God's sovereign plan through the couplets of their faith? The time for divine manifestations approached, and the echo of prophecy tremored across the land, preparing the hearts of a myriad for transcendent encounters yet to unfold. And it came to pass that as the words of Shem reverberated through the crowd, boldness filled the hearts of those gathered. The multitude, eager yet frightened, encircled the focus of their faith, a man who shone with the light of the Almighty. As the shadows of Nimrod advanced, it was doubt that stirred in the hearts of many. What good can come from standing against such might? Whispered some, their faces clouded with fear. Shem, feeling the tremor of uncertainty, raised his hands high, the firmness of his stance a beacon of hope. Fear not, for our battle is not against flesh and blood, but against the powers that surge in darkness, he proclaimed. The Lord has shown us a way through the valley of shadows, and he will be our shield. Among the crowd stood Japheth, whose spirit was ignited by the fervor of his father's words. "Look now," he exclaimed, "the Almighty is faithful. He parted the sea for our ancestors, and he will make a path for us. Join hands, brothers and sisters. Let us stand united as one people under the banner of truth." Hearing this, the assembly rallied together, grasping hold of one another with a renewed sense of purpose. They began to sing praises, their voices rising to heaven, intertwining in sweet harmony. "Great is our God, who delivers his people. Blessed be the name of the Lord," they cried, filling the air with an aroma of faith. Yet the menacing silhouette of Nimrod loomed larger with each echo of their songs. He, shielded in armor and arrogance, charged forth, leading his warriors with a shout of defiance that cracked like thunder. "Fools, do you think this mere zeal can stand against the power of the
Great King? I summon the strength of the earth, and you shall tremble before me." Shem felt the weight of the moment. He sought the heart of the Lord in an urgent prayer. And there, amidst the clamor of war and worship, a quiet whisper flowed through him. "Freedom is for the humble, and mercy for the meek. Stand firm, this is a moment of revelation." Strengthened by this divine assurance, he beckoned the crowd closer, their unity a visible testament to their faith. "Lift your eyes to the heavens," Shem called out, his voice resonating with the power of conviction. "For we possess within us the seed of promise. The Lord is in our midst, and with his outstretched arm he shall deliver us. Let us recount his mighty deeds." The assembly erupted in recounting the awe of creation, the great flood that had cleansed the earth, the covenant marked by rainbow across the sky, and the everlasting faithfulness of God that had carried their forebears through trials unknown. As they stood united in testimony, a brilliant light split the darkening sky, igniting the faces of the faithful with courage. The ground trembled as the adversary of Nimrod paused, his confidence beginning to waver before the undeniable presence of the Most High God. "What is this what I see?" Nimrod shouted, anger simmering in his voice. "What power is this that encircles you?" Shem raised his voice above the din. "We stand as one people beneath the sovereign's banner. Rise in faith, for the God who parted the sea shall part the very heavens for our deliverance." In that trepidation-laden moment, the Lord began to unveil his plan, a revelation cascading upon the sons of men and forging hearts together, as nations were destined to be born from this faithful assembly. A whisper of divine command surged through the gathering, igniting souls with the flicker of purpose yet to unfold. Instantly, a deep realization dawned. Each voice raised was a thread in the fabric of God's tapestry. What divine legacy awaited the nations in the promise the Almighty had crafted? The shadows of adversaries would be met with the light of desperate faith, and in this hour creatures of every tribe and tongue would be gathered to fulfill God's sovereign decree. Prepare, for the foundations of history were on the precipice of an eternal transformation. And it came to pass that as Shem's words soared into the heavens, the hearts of the gathered began to beat as one. With hands uplifted, they encased the sky in praise, their faith becoming a fortress against the approaching storm of darkness. Yet Nimrod, enraged, undeterred by the fervor of their resolve, drew closer, his warriors clad in iron and shadow, arrayed against the light. "Your songs are but a feeble echo, a whisper against the thundering authority of my reign," he bellowed, brandishing his sword as if to cleave the very heavens. But lo, from the depths of the crowd stepped Japheth, fierce and resolute. "The name of the Lord is a strong tower. The righteous run into it and are safe," he declared, his voice reverberating with a power that silenced the trembling doubt of those near him. "Do not let the threats of men deter you. We belong to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the one who calls us by name." As if responding to Japheth's boldness, a wind stirred upon the earth, lifting the dust of the ground skyward. At that moment, the collective faith of the assembly became a living prayer, a radiant offering dedicated unto the Almighty. Their voices blended into a mighty crescendo. "The earth is the Lord's, and the fullness thereof. He shall fight for us." Then, in that sacred moment of unity, the skies opened wider, and a magnificent celestial glow descended upon them, illuminating the darkness encasing Nimrod and his forces. For in the midst of their fear and uncertainty, a cloud of witnesses appeared, and the very angels of the Lord stood among the faithful, their presence a testament of divine assurance. "Fear not, for I have called you by name. You are mine," echoed in the hearts of the believers. They felt emboldened, their faith igniting like flames in the night. Each soldier of Nimrod, once fearless, now faltered as they felt the tremors of an otherworldly power shaking the very ground beneath their feet. "What sorcery is this?" Nimrod shouted, his voice drenched in desperation. He turned to his mighty warriors, but their eyes betrayed them as they caught glimpses of the angelic host fluttering above, unbridled and glorious, resonating with the chant of heaven. Shem, perceiving the weight of what was before them, raised his voice once more. "You witness today the hand of God. Remember the fear of our forefathers, the fear that drove the hearts of our enemies. They knew his strength." At that moment, a thunderous roar resonated from the heavens, reminding all of the might of the Creator. "Let the earth tremble, for he is our God," they proclaimed. The sound of their reverberating faith echoed like the sound of many waters, casting forth waves that crashed against the fortress of Nimrod, weakening his grip. And as the darkness writhed, a sudden stillness enveloped the battlefield. For the Lord was opening the book of his promise over them. They saw a vision revealed, a tapestry of unity woven with the threads of their faith. 70 nations woven together in a divine purpose, destined to rise and declare the wonders of the Lord. Wondrous whispers of eternity infused the moment, leveling hearts and uniting souls. Shem understood now. They were each chosen to bear witness to a promise that transcended their time. We are not merely in the presence of one another. We dwell in the heart of God's ultimate design. In this unity lies our legacy, a generation of nations poised to lift his name high. With vigor, the people rejoiced, knowing that victory did not halt at the battle's end, but continued forth into generations yet born, echoing a divine promise fulfilled through their descendants. And as they turned their eyes to the horizon, where shadows still marred the land, the Spirit of the Lord whispered, The legacy of the faithful is to awaken the nations to my covenant. Be prepared, for soon the corners of the earth shall speak of my greatness, as the sons and daughters of your faith arise. What further wonders awaited them in God's unfolding plan? The flicker of promise within each heart ignited, hinting at a strength unmeasured, a purpose yet undefined, weaving together destinies that would shape the world. As the stillness hung heavy over the battlefield, a hush fell upon both the faithful and the fierce. The breath of God moved, stirring their hearts as He revealed the unfolding of a greater design. In this pregnant silence, the Lord's voice echoed softly yet firmly, "Prepare your hearts, my chosen, for I shall lead you in paths of righteousness and glory." Nimrod, his brow furrowed with fury and fear, surveyed the magnificent glow that now enveloped the faithful. The brightness of the heavenly host was a stark contrast to the shadows of his own hands stained with rebellion. "What shall we do?" he barked, desperation clawing at the edges of his command. The men of iron, faces pale and trembling, glanced around as if seeking an escape from the unseen terror that loomed. Yet the assembly of believers, emboldened by the divine presence, did not waver. They locked arms, forming a circle of strength and unity, their voices rising in unison. "We will not be moved. The Lord is our refuge." With each note, they clung tightly to the covenant made to their fathers. Among the gathering, Ham felt a stirring within him, a whisper that kindled the embers of hope. "Brothers," he called out, his voice cutting through the din of chaos, "this day is not merely over flesh and blood. It is a battle for souls. We must not lose sight of the promise we hold. We are the bearers of the witness to the nations." As his words took flight, a renewed sense of purpose enveloped the assembly. They understood that their stand was not just for their safety, but for the legacy that awaited them, woven into the very fabric of creation. From the heavens, the voices of angels shimmered, intertwining with their praises, declaring, "Behold the mysteries of the Lord. Through you the nations shall rise and fall. Through your faith the earth will know the power of His name." A vision of the 70 nations unfolded before their eyes, each people destined to declare His greatness. The promise was alive as nations prepared to spring forth from their loins. The air was thick with anticipation, electric with the possibilities of what was to come. Shem, his heart thundering, made bold proclamation. "We are not mere wanderers lost in the depths of despair. We are heralds.
From our lineage shall come kings and prophets, teachers and leaders, who will proclaim the ways of the one true God." Nimrod, realizing his grip was faltering, raised his sword high, rallying his soldiers in a last desperate bid. "We shall not yield! Drive them back! They are but moths drawn to the flame!" His voice, once commanding, now trembled with the weight of fear, as the warriors felt the growing strength of the faithful. Yet a voice, resonant and commanding, interjected from within the throng. It was Japheth, fearlessly stepping forward. "You may wield swords of iron, Nimrod, but we wield the word of the Lord. Against His might, what can man do?" His words carried the authority of one who knew the faithfulness of his God. In that moment, the ground beneath them quaked once more, echoing the cries of prophecy that had long been hidden. The heavens unveiled a glimpse of the future. Where once stood confusion and division would arise a multitude of peoples, every nation destined to testify of the Lord's goodness. With renewed vigor, the faithful roared their cries of triumph, knowing that the story of their faith was interwoven with the generations yet to come. The power shifted on the battlefield as day broke amidst the darkness. And as the sun illuminated the horizon, the Spirit whispered again to them, "The time is approaching when I will unfold my plan. Nations will call upon my name.
"Watch closely, for I will do a new thing. Will you not perceive it?" With hope ignited and eyes fixed on the promises of God, they understood their calling was not just for themselves, but for the ages to come. A legacy of faith, far beyond their understanding, waiting to echo through eternity. What would unfold as the ages progressed? The dawn of destiny awaited, shrouded in the mysteries of God's divine purpose. As the dawn broke and the sun illuminated the battlefield, the faithful stood firm, emboldened by the communion of their spirits and the continuing promise of God. The sacred light ignited a fire within them, a remembrance of their heritage that spanned lifetimes and generations. They looked upon one another, their hearts resonating in a testament of unity. They were a chosen remnant, heirs to a legacy of faith. Nimrod, now sensing the tremor of uncertainty amongst his ranks, cast a frantic glance toward his soldiers. "Rally to me!" he exclaimed, desperation spiraling into anger. "We shall not be eclipsed by these followers of a silent God." He felt the weight of his crown pressing upon him, a reminder of power that seemed ever more fragile. Yet the Lord's voice thundered through the hearts of the assembly, inviting them to remember his might. Their collective hearts pounded in resounding faith as they began to sing, voices harmonizing like echoes of ages past. "The Lord is our banner. The one who goes before us will fight our battles." Their song, a weapon forged in trust,
pushed back the shadow that lurked behind Nimrod's iron facade. Seeing his men wavering, Nimrod issued one final command: "Draw your swords, fight for your glory and your future." But even as he spoke, confusion enveloped him. A sudden stillness fell upon the battlefield, the air thick with palpable tension. His soldiers hesitated, caught between loyalty to their king and the stirring invocation of holiness echoing from the faithful. Ham, observing the shift in the hearts of the soldiers, seized the moment. He stepped forward, his voice cutting through the silence like a sword. "You who stand against us, will you risk your souls for the fleeting ambition of a fallen king? Join us, for the God we serve is mighty to save." His words stirred an awakening, a divine reckoning that swept through the ranks of the adversaries, unraveling their resolve. The grace of God moved among the people like a wind in the trees, and at that moment a scattering began. Some soldiers cast their swords aside, eyes now reflecting the brilliance of the faithful's light. Those who remained with Nimrod felt the weight of their decisions press heavily upon their hearts. Then a voice emerged like boiling thunder from the heavens, cutting through the mists of confusion. "Behold, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs forth. Will you not perceive it?" As the words reverberated, the faithful were filled with the Spirit anew, and they understood that this moment was not merely about conquering on the battlefield, but about the reclamation of hearts and heritage. Nimrod watched, rage flaring, as he perceived the tide turning irrevocably against him. "Forsake him not," he cried out, feeling his grip on power slip through his fingers. He summoned the darkest shadows of his heart, commanding, "Flee from the word, tread down these invaders." Yet, even as he demanded this, an internal dread rose, knowing that the winds of change swept not just through the field, but across all nations destined to unfold. Thus, redemption played its hand where hope and despair intermingled. The faithful rejoiced as the ground beneath them trembled with the footsteps of unseen legions. The air crackled with the future. Voices of prophets past whispered amongst them, echoing the covenant declared to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the promise that all nations shall be blessed through their seed. As the sun ascended higher, illuminating faces turned toward heaven, they understood it was an extraordinary moment. The battle might be won or lost, but the legacy they would leave became crystal clear. They were not merely fighting for their lives, they were part of an unfolding narrative of salvation that spanned the generations to come.
And thus, as the light reignited their hopes, a deeper purpose was revealed within the hearts of the faithful. Their fight was for the generations yet to come, a promise that from them would spring forth messengers of grace unto the 70 nations. What destiny awaited those to emerge from their lineage? Would they rise to fulfill the divine call and embrace the new thing God would impart? The unfolding of his sacred narrative beckoned, laden with both mystery and promise. As the sun climbed higher in the heavens, the battlefield simmered under the weight of divine possibility. The faithful stood steadfast, their eyes shining with the radiance of hope, while Nimrod felt a storm brewing within his heart, a tempest raging against the encroaching reality of vulnerability. In that moment of tension, the faithful, guided by the Spirit, began to embrace the prophetic utterances of old. "Sing, O barren one, for the desolate shall have more children than she who is married," they proclaimed with one voice, echoing the promises of Isaiah. Their words breathed anew into the very air around them, charging it with a presence that made the ground quake. "Let the heavens rejoice, for our deliverance is upon us." The soldiers who lingered with Nimrod found their resolve waning under such powerful declarations. Hope, once dampened by fear, began to flicker and surge within their hearts. A few stepped forward, abandoning their steel, and joined the throng of the faithful, their spirits ignited. "We choose life! We choose the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob!" they cried, environment transformed by the sound of their shouts, reverberating like thunderous applause in the heavens. Nimrod's face twisted with fury and disbelief as he saw his ranks dwindle. "You fools! You shall be forsaken!" His voice, though commanding, trembled as he sensed the divine hand moving against him. He turned, seeking solace in the shadows, but there, amidst the darkness, he felt the engulfing awareness of being utterly alone, stripped of his former power. Then, a wind, unmarred by earthly chains, swept through the battlefield. It was the breath of God, lingering like a whisper, calling forth the latent faith buried deep within the hearts of many. Even those who had remained loyal to Nimrod felt the weight of their choices begin to shift. They looked upon their fallen comrades, and tears brimmed their eyes. "What have we done?" one murmured, heartbroken. In the midst of this tumult, a vision unfolded before the faithful. They beheld a great multitude advancing from the east, adorned in the garments of worship. They were men and women of every nation, drawn forth by the spirit of unity, a living testament to the promise inherent in their lineage. "See, all nations shall flow to the mountain of the Lord," prophesied the faithful. Suddenly, a surge of confidence filled Ham once more. "Brothers and sisters, this is not merely a battle of swords, it is a battle for our very souls. Stand firm on the promises of God." An electric anticipation rippled through the ranks, igniting renewed bravery. "Who is this King of glory?" one of the faithful cried, raising his voice in triumphant defiance. "The Lord, strong and mighty, the Lord, mighty in battle." They lifted their hands in collective worship, allowing the Spirit to descend upon them
Anew, each heartbeat echoing the surging conviction that their God was with them. Then, at that sacred crescendo, the heavens rent open as a voice descended like light illuminating the darkness. "Your fight is not against flesh and blood, but against the powers and principalities that seek to obscure my name." Even Nimrod, enveloped in perplexity, was caught off guard. "What is this? I command you to silence," he shouted, flailing in a futile attempt to regain control. Yet the faithful were emboldened, their unity solidified by the revelation that resonated inside them. They bore the spirit of a timeless promise, a mission greater than one solitary battle. "For a remnant shall return, and the glory of the Lord shall be made manifest through us." And as they cried out, the air shimmered with that very promise.
a glimpse into the future that awaited. Thus, they understood. This battle was but a mere shadow of the greater victory that lay ahead. The faithful, unified in purpose, realized they were not just fighting for their lives, they were initiating the dawn of a redemptive legacy destined to transform nations and generations. What marvels would arise from their lineage? What messengers would tread upon the earth with power and authority as they unfolded his story? A divine tapestry was being woven, lush with promise, and those who would proclaim his name would illuminate even the darkest corners. The time was nigh for God's purpose to unfold in ways beyond human comprehension, promising that the legacy of salvation would ripple through the ages. What glorious destinies awaited these chosen heirs! In the midst of their trial, the sweetness of divine revelation beckoned through the echoes of promise, leaving all in eager anticipation of what was yet to come. As the echo of the divine proclamation settled into the hearts of the faithful, an unusual stillness gripped the battlefield. The murmurs among the people faded to whispers, as eyes turned skyward, awash in the glory of the moment, a stark contrast to the chaos of war. The omnipotent voice had pierced the veil of fear, igniting a flame of courage that blazed like a beacon in the night. "Fear not, O remnant of Israel," the faithful declared, emboldened by the spirit that coursed through them. "For the Lord your God is with you, a mighty warrior who saves. He will take great delight in you. In his love he will no longer rebuke you, but will rejoice over you with singing." Zephaniah 3:17. With these words, hope swelled anew, propelling them forward, ready to claim their inheritance. Nimrod, despite the tremors of fear gnawing at his heart, raised his voice in defiance. "What are you, a rabble of despairing souls? You cannot envision the end of my dominion." Yet, even as he shouted, the conviction of his words faltered, diminished by the unity of the faithful surrounding him. The very ground beneath him seemed to tremble, as though creation itself responded to the earnest
Call of the righteous. In that moment, a great cloud descended upon the gathering, soft yet powerful, enveloping the faithful amidst a backdrop of thunderous applause from the heavens. From the cloud, a figure emerged, clothed in radiant light, the angel of the Lord, whose presence shone brighter than the midday sun. "I come to declare the time of reckoning," the angel proclaimed, voice resonating like a trumpet. "For your prayers have been heard, and the Lord Almighty has set you apart for a mighty work." With each word, the hearts of the faithful thumped resolutely in response. "Then let us march forth," they cried in unison. "Let us proclaim the goodness of the Lord amongst the nations." It was a call to arms of a different nature, one not of blades and swords, but of faith, love, and truth. As the faithful advanced, the multitude from the east, those adorned in garments of worship, moved as one, joining the faithful in fervent assembly. Together, they raised a new anthem, a song that resonated across the land, shaking the very foundations of idolatry and oppression. "The Lord reigns! Let the earth rejoice!" Psalm 97:1. The voices rose higher as they advanced, emboldening one another in the promise of their God. In the shadows, Nimrod's hold faltered. "What sorcery is this?" he questioned, clutching his sword as if it were a lifeline. "I will not be undone by the likes of you." But doubt gnawed at him, relentless and consuming, as cracks spread through the once unshakable fortification of his heart. Then a great wind, like a rushing torrent, swept across the battlefield, and with it the angel spoke again. "The Lord will execute judgment on your behalf. Your chains shall fall, and your oppressors will know that I am the Lord." In that moment, the angels encamped around the faithful drew their swords, gleaming with divine light.
Together, these celestial forces aligned with the steadfast heart of humanity, casting fear aside as they moved towards the forefront of battle. And in that sacred hour, the faithful fully grasped the depth of their purpose. "We are sowers of the seed," one of them proclaimed passionately, "and our fruit shall bring healing to the nations. Who shall stand against the counsel of our God?" As they pressed on, their unity a testament to His eternal plan, visions of what was to come burst forth within them. What miraculous legacy would spring forth from their obedience? What destinies were weaving together among families and nations, unseen but eternally present? Even now, as the battle between light and darkness raged on, the faithful began to sense the grand narrative of redemption unfolding, a tapestry of grace that would span generations. Amidst the impending conflict, they marveled what divine revelations awaited in the days to come. For the sovereign plan of the Almighty was weaving its intricate path towards glory, provoking both awe and anticipation as they surrendered to the unfolding mystery of God's eternal promise. And it came to pass that, as the sun reached its zenith, a palpable presence emanated from the assembly of the faithful. No longer were they mere wanderers in pursuit of safety. They stood as brave heralds chosen by the Almighty to usher forth the legacy of faith that would echo through the corridors of history. Their hearts, united as one, pulsed with a potent knowledge. This battle was merely a precursor to the divine unfolding of God's glorious plan. "Remember that the Lord your God is a warrior," Shem declared, his voice reverberating with assurance. "He will fight for you. We are destined to be the salt and light of the earth, to draw forth the nations to His truth." At His words, courage ignited among the faithful like a blazing fire, illuminating the very shadows of doubt that clung to the battlefield's edges. Nimrod, now ensnared by desperation, rallied his forces, yet he could feel the tremor of fear crawling up his spine. "Stand firm," he shouted, though his voice trembled with uncertainty. "Our dominion shall not be shattered by these insurgents." But even as he spoke, he could see cracks forming in the resolve of his warriors, their fear battling against the rising faith in the hearts of the faithful. With the spirits of their forefathers intermingling with their own, the faithful, emboldened, began to chant, "We will not be shaken. We honor the covenant. We will rise through the flames, and as one we will declare His glory." Their voices encircled the battlefield, sending ripples of strength that rendered Nimrod's men faltering, their courage consumed by the presence of a power greater than their own. Then, amidst this fervor, a resounding thunder broke forth from the skies. The angel of the Lord, bright and majestic, filled the air with the proclamation of divine judgment. "Lo, the Lord has heard your cries, and He shall scatter your enemies before you. For the promise of salvation flows from the lineage of faith, of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. A deliverance awaits greater than you can fathom." In that moment, life surged through the assembly, rejuvenating weary spirits and reminding them of their calling. As evening shadows stretched across the horizon, the faithful gathered closer, their hearts beating in unity. "Stand strong," Japheth exclaimed, gripping his brother's shoulder, "for we will witness the fulfillment of His promise. From our faith, the walls of darkness shall crumble. This victory is not just ours, but for generations yet born. The nations shall rise and know the true God." At that prophetic declaration, the atmosphere crackled with expectancy. The assembly, fueled by the spirit of unity, surged forward as one, a multitude ready to stand against the waves of darkness that threatened to consume them. Shem raised his staff high, mixing the earthly and the divine into a single mighty proclamation. "Today we stand not against flesh and blood, but against the principalities of darkness, and the God of angel armies is our shield." As the faithful advanced, the
Ground echoed with their united footsteps, a powerful rhythm dancing to the heartbeat of the Almighty. Not even Nimrod could ignore the crescendo of hope, the wild song of faith that filled the air with anticipation. His soldiers, once unwavering, found themselves overwhelmed by the vision of unity before them. Where once stood the promise of empire, now rose the clarity of destiny. In that pivotal moment, as the darkness began to retreat, Shem stepped forward once more. As we engage not with swords, but with the love of our God, let our cries herald the dawn of a new era. Our legacy will not be tainted by the pride that led to Babel. Rather, we shall embody humility, teaching the nations to seek Him. The mantle of leadership shifted before their eyes. The baton of faith passed to a new generation, ready to embrace the mantle of witness. Time held its breath as they drew close to God, their voices unifying into a singular anthem. The Lord is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. And with those provisions of unity set firmly in their hearts, they surged towards Nimrod, not as foes filled with wrath, but as messengers of compassion extended beyond their own survival. "Join us, for the Lord hath chosen a new way," Ham cried out. "Turn from the path of destruction, for He desires mercy, not sacrifice." As the continual wave of faith and bravery washed over the battlefield, darkness surrendered to the brilliance of their devotion. God's mighty hand began to intervene, battle shifts manifesting in chaos for their opponents. The shadows that had loomed large began to fade before the presence of the light, the glory of God covering the earth anew. And it was written that the hearts of many were transformed that day. Those who once followed the ways of rebellion turned towards the hope of the covenant. They saw the authenticity in Shem and his family's pledge to God. And this moment became a pivotal shift for the 70 nations to come, drawn together by the cry of faith spearheaded upon the battlefield of deliverance. The whispers of the Almighty carried through the air. "Behold, your deliverance has come. The glory of my name shall reflect in the hearts of my people. The legacy of faith shall flourish and sprout forth from your lineage, branching into the wild panorama of humanity." In profound silence, Shem, Ham, and Japheth met gazes filled with purpose, their resolve binding stronger than iron, a promise visible as a tapestry, intricately woven through generations, revealing threads of glory yet to be unveiled. With a renewed sense of obedience, the faithful erupted into spirited praise that echoed through the valley. "Hosanna! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord!" And it came to pass that victory was not merely forged in the moment, but in the hearts of the faithful, those who lived not for themselves, but gazed towards the heavens with faith that transcended time.
Bound in the eternal destiny of God's sovereign plan. Thus, with the promise of their story flourishing in every nation, may we remind ourselves of our heritage, that we too are heirs of this legacy, and we are called to be vessels of hope among the nations. Let us boldly walk in our faith, proclaiming His goodness and His glory, as the descendants of Shem, Ham, and Japheth continue to affect the world for His name. Now, if this incredible story has ignited a flame of faith within you, this is your moment. You need to subscribe now to stay connected to God's Word and not miss any powerful biblical stories. Leave a like now to help spread God's Word through the algorithm. Your support makes a difference. Share your spiritual reflections in the comments. We want to hear how this biblical journey has impacted your faith. And don't wait even one more second. Share this powerful testimony instantaneously with at least 5 friends who need to hear God's truth. Together, we can engage more souls for Christ in His enduring legacy.